An 18-year-old boy was delivering papers to an apartment building. While there, a stunning young woman came out of the apartment next to the mailboxes, wearing only a robe. The boy smiled at the young woman, and she started up a conversation with him. As they talked, her robe slipped open, and it was obvious that she had nothing else on. The poor kid broke into a sweat, trying to maintain eye contact. After a few minutes of flirting, she placed her hand on his arm and said, "Let's go to my apartment. I hear someone coming." He followed her into her apartment. She closed the door and leaned against it, allowing her robe to fall off completely. Now nude, she purred at him. "What would you say is my best feature?" Flustered and embarrassed, he finally squeaked, "It has to be your ears." Astounded and a little hurt, she asked, "My ears? Look at these brats. They are a full 38 inches and 100% natural. I work out every day, and my ass is firm and solid. I have a 28-inch waist. Look at my skin, not a blemish anywhere. How can you think that the best part of my body is my ears?" Clearing his throat, he stammered, "Outside, when you said you heard someone coming, that was me." A wife comes back home to her husband only to find out that the building of her apartment has caught fire. The place is surrounded by firemen and police officers who are not letting anyone through. The wife hysterically goes forward, shouting at them to let her through, and that her husband is inside. The fireman tries to calm her down, tells her condolences, and says that all the people that were inside are dead. The wife goes even crazier, wanting to pass through and find her husband. The fireman tries to explain that due to the fire, all the corpses are coal black, and that she wouldn't be able to identify him. The wife, now even crazier, insists on going in. "I have been his wife for 20 years. I know every inch of him. I definitely can tell him apart." So the fireman finally decides to let her in. She goes to the first bag, opens it, and reaches with her hand all the way down to his private area. That's not him. She then goes to the next bag and repeats the same thing. That's not him either. She opens a third bag, and again reaches all the way down to the guy's privates. But this time there's a long pause. This guy is not even from this building. Late one evening, a tired Marine pulled into a small town and started looking for a place to sleep. Unfortunately, every hotel was full. At the last hotel in town, he walked up to the front desk and said, "Please tell me you have something. A room, a couch, even just a bed. I don't care where." The manager hesitated. "Well, I do have one double room left, but there's already a Navy guy in it. He might be willing to split the cost." "That's fine," said the Marine. "There's one problem," the manager added. "He snores so loudly that people in nearby rooms have complained before." The Marine shrugged. "I'm too tired to care. I'll take it." The next morning, the Marine came down to breakfast looking rested and cheerful. The manager was surprised. "How did you sleep?" "Never better," said the Marine. "No trouble with the snoring?" "Not after I handled it." The manager leaned closer. "How did you do that?" The Marine smiled. "When I walked in, he was already asleep and snoring like a chainsaw. So I went over, gave him a little kiss on the cheek, and whispered, 'Good night, beautiful.'" The manager stared at him. The Marine grinned and added, "After that, he sat up all night watching me." A blonde golfer goes into the pro shop and looks around, frowning. Finally, the pro asks her what she wants. "I can't find any green golf balls," the blonde golfer complains. The pro looks all over the shop, through all the catalogs, and finally calls the manufacturers and determines that there are no green golf balls. As the blonde golfer walks out the door in disgust, the pro asks her, "Before you go, could you tell me why you want green golf balls?" "Well, obviously, because they would be so much easier to find in the sand traps." Husband, "Hey, babe, let's test your brain today." Wife, "Bring it on." Husband, "Okay, imagine you're lost in the middle of the forest. No GPS, no phone signal, nothing. What would you do?" The wife thought for a moment. "I'd pick up a big rock, find a coyote, and try to hit it." The husband stared at her. "What? How on earth would that help? She smiled confidently. Easy. My dad always said that when a coyote senses danger, it runs toward the city. The husband blinked. So, she shrugged. I followed the coyote. Boom. Straight back to civilization. The husband sat there in silence for a few seconds. Then he quietly opened his laptop and deleted his entire college degree folder. He finally whispered, somewhere along the way, I clearly missed that class. Moral, never underestimate a wife's logic. It doesn't need Google Maps. It creates its own route. On a crowded bus, a college girl kept holding tightly onto a banana in her back pocket, afraid it might get squashed in the crowd. After all, it was her breakfast. As the bus approached the third stop, a man standing behind her asked politely, Excuse me, are you getting off at the next stop? Not wanting to encourage conversation, she replied sharply, No way. The man hesitated, then said, Sorry, in that case, could you please give me? He gently touched her hand, the one holding the banana. She snapped, Hey, this banana is my breakfast. I'm not giving it to you. The man calmly replied, Yes, your breakfast is still in your pocket, but what you're holding right now is my wife's dinner. A blonde walks into Best Buy. She asks a clerk if she can buy the TV in the corner. The clerk looks at her and says that he doesn't serve blondes, so she goes back home and dyes her hair black. The next day, she returns to the store and asks the same thing, and again the clerk says he doesn't serve blondes. Frustrated, the blonde goes home and dyes her hair yet again to a shade of red, sure that a clerk would sell her the TV this time. She returns and asks a different clerk this time. To her astonishment, this clerk also says that she doesn't serve blondes. The blonde asks the clerk, How do you know I am a blonde? The clerk looks at her disgustedly and says, That's not a TV, it's a microwave. Bob calls into his job. Hey, boss, I'm not coming to work today. I'm really sick. I got a headache, a stomach ache, and my legs hurt, so I'm not coming into work. The boss says, You know, Bob, I really need you today. When I feel like this, I go to my wife and tell her to give me sex. That makes me feel better, and I can go to work. You should try that. 2 hours later, Bob calls. Boss, I did what you said, and I feel great. I'll be at work soon. By the way, you got a nice house. While enjoying a drink at the bar, a guy decided to try his luck with an attractive young girl sitting alone. To his surprise, she asked him to join her for a drink and eventually asked if he'd like to come back to her place. The pair jumped into a taxi and went back to her house. Later, the young man pulled out a cigarette from his jeans and searched for his lighter. Unable to find it, he asked the girl if she had one at hand. There might be some matches in the top drawer, she replied, opening the drawer of the bedside table. He found a box of matches sitting neatly on top of a framed picture of another man. Naturally, the guy began to worry. Is this your husband? He inquired nervously. No, silly, she replied, snuggling up to him. Your boyfriend then? No, don't be silly, she said, nibbling away at his ear. Well, who is he then? Demanded the bewildered fellow. Calmly, the girl took a match, struck it across the side of her face, and replied, That's me, before the operation. A Swede, an Irishman, a Scotsman, and their wives went golfing one day. As they approached the first tee, the Swede's wife stepped up to take her shot. As she bent over to place her ball, a gust of wind lifted her skirt, revealing that she wasn't wearing any underwear. Shocked, her husband, Oh, exclaimed, Good grief, woman, why aren't you wearing any skivvies? She shrugged and replied, You don't give me enough housekeeping money to afford any. Embarrassed, O reached into his pocket and said, For the sake of decency, here's a 50. Go buy yourself some underwear. Next, the Irishman's wife approached the tee. As she bent over, another gust of wind lifted her skirt, showing that she, too, was without underwear. Her husband, Patrick, gasped, Saints preserve us, woman, you've no knickers on. Why not? She sighed, Well, you don't give me enough money for such luxuries. Patrick shook his head, pulled out his wallet, and handed her a 20. For the sake of decency, go buy yourself some underwear. Finally, the Scotsman's wife, Aggie, stepped up. As she bent over to place her ball, the wind took her skirt right up over her head, once again, revealing she was going commando. Her husband, Duncan, threw up his hands and groaned. For Jake's sake, Aggie, where the hell are your drawers? She replied, You don't give me enough money to afford any. Duncan sighed, reached into his pocket, and handed her a comb. Well, for the love of decency, tidy yourself up a bit. A group of aeronautical engineering professors were invited to take a free flight on a brand new aircraft that was being introduced for the first time. They all boarded the plane, found their seats, and began chatting proudly about technology, innovation, and the future of aviation. Just as the doors were closing and the engines were starting, a voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your confidence in joining the inaugural flight of this aircraft. We are proud to announce that this plane was designed and built entirely by your students over the past year. The cabin went silent. Within seconds, nearly every professor began unbuckling his seatbelt. Some rushed toward the exit. Others grabbed their bags, and a nervous line quickly formed at the door. But one professor remained calmly seated, smiling to himself. Another professor, already halfway to the exit, turned and asked, Why aren't you getting off? Don't you realize this plane was built by our students? The seated professor nodded. Of course I do. So you trust that we taught them well enough to build a safe aircraft? The professor smiled even wider and said, No, but I know our students. This thing will never get off the ground. A man and a woman were having dinner in a fine restaurant. Their waitress, taking another order at a table a few paces away, noticed that the man was slowly sliding down his chair and under the table, with the woman acting unconcerned. The waitress watched as the man slid all the way down his chair and out of sight under the table. Still, the woman dining across from him appeared calm and unruffled, apparently unaware that her dining companion had disappeared. After the waitress finished taking the order, she came over to the table and said to the woman, Pardon me, ma'am, but I think your husband just slid under the table. The woman calmly looked up at her and replied firmly, No, he didn't. He just walked in the door. The pair were also celebrating their 60th birthdays. During the celebration, a fairy godmother appeared and told them that because they had been such a lovely pair for so many years, she would grant them each one wish. The wife said she wanted to travel around the world. The fairy godmother waved her magic wand and boom. The wife had the tickets in her hand. Then it was the husband's turn. He paused for a moment, then said boldly, Well, I'd like to have a wife 30 years younger than I. The fairy godmother picked up her wand and boom. He was now 90. Two elderly women were sitting on a patio one afternoon, drinking tea and talking about their grandchildren. Point one of them sighed and said, I don't understand kids these days. I send my grandchildren birthday cards, gifts, and even very generous checks, and they still barely come visit me. The other old lady smiled and nodded and said, Oh, I too send checks to my grandchildren, and they visit me all the time. Really? The first woman asked. You are so fortunate. It's great to have family around. That must feel wonderful. No, my grandchildren are as good as yours, the second woman replied. The first lady leaned closer. What's your secret? The second old woman took a slow sip of tea and grinned. I never signed the checks. A man going on a business trip visits a witch doctor for his wife. He explains to the witch doctor that his wife has a very high sex drive, and he wants to make sure she can satisfy herself while he's gone. No ordinary item will do. The witch doctor nods and says, I have just the right thing. And he pulls out a box. This is a voodoo dick. It is quite easy to use. Simply say, voodoo dick, and the part you want to fuck, and it will start. So the man buys it and gifts it to his wife before going on his trip. The day after he's gone, the wife decides to try it out. She reads the instructions and says, Voodoo my vagina. And sure enough, the dick starts f***ing her. It's great and keeps going for a long time. After she gets off, however, she realizes a problem. She doesn't know how to make it stop. The witch doctor's address is on the box, though, so she hops in her car and starts trying to drive there, all the while the voodoo is still going at it. She's swerving on a road and ends up being pulled over. The police very sternly ask her, "Have you been drinking? You were all over the road." "No, officer," the wife replies. "It's this voodoo It won't stop f***ing me." Clearly not believing her, the officer scoffs and says, "Voodoo, f*** my ass." From all over the world pointed toward him. "Today," he announced, "we are going to prove once and for all that blondes are not stupid. Can I have a volunteer?" A blonde slowly made her way through the massive cheering crowd and stepped onto the stage, looking both nervous and proud. The leader smiled and asked gently, "All right, what is 15 plus 15? She frowned, thinking deeply. The stadium went completely silent. Even the cameras seemed to pause. After about 20 seconds, she finally answered, 18. A wave of disappointment spread through the stadium. But then 80,000 voices suddenly erupted. "Give her another chance. Give her another chance." The leader hesitated, overwhelmed by the energy of the crowd. "Well, I suppose, since we got everyone here and the entire world watching. Okay, one more chance." He leaned in again. "What is 5 plus 5? This time, she took even longer. Her lips moved silently as she counted on her fingers. The tension grew unbearable. Finally, she said, 90. A collective groan filled the stadium. The leader closed his eyes, shaking his head in disbelief. The blonde's eyes began to tear up, but the crowd refused to let it end. "Give her another chance. Give her another chance." They roared. The leader, now completely unsure, raised his hands. "All right, last chance. What is 2 plus 2? The blonde closed her eyes tightly. The entire stadium held its breath. After what felt like forever, she whispered, 4. Silence. Then suddenly, the entire stadium exploded. 80,000 people jumped to their feet, waving their arms, screaming at the top of their lungs. "Give her another chance. Give her another chance." A man with a 25-inch long penis goes to his doctor to complain that he is unable to get any women to have sex with him. They all tell him that his penis is too long. "Doctor," he asks in total frustration, "is there any way you can shorten it?" The doctor replies, "Medically, son, there is nothing I can do, but I do know this which may be able to help you out." So the doctor gives him directions to the witch. The man calls upon the witch and relays his story. "Witch, my penis is 25 inches long, and I can't get any women to have sex with me. Can you help me shorten it?" The witch stares in amazement, scratches her head, and then replies, "I think I have a solution to your problem. What you have to do is go to this pond deep in the forest. In the pond, you will see a frog sitting on a log who can help solve your dilemma. First, you must ask the frog, 'Will you marry me?' Each time the frog declines your proposal, your penis will be 5 inches shorter." The man's face lights up, and he dashes off into the forest. He calls out to the frog, "Will you marry me?" The frog looks at him dejectedly and replies, "N-O." The man looks down, and suddenly his penis is 5 inches shorter. "Wow," he screams out loud, "this is great." But he is still too long at 20 inches, so he asks the frog again. "Frog, will you marry me?" the guy shouts. The frog rolls his eyes back in his head and screams back, "N-O." The man feels another twitch in his penis, looks down, and sees it's another 5 inches shorter. The man laughs. This is fantastic. He looks down at his penis again, 15 inches long, and reflects for a moment. 15 inches is still a monster. Just a little less would be ideal. Grinning, he looks across the pond and yells out, "Frog, will you marry me?" The frog looks back across the pond, shaking its head. "How many times do I have to tell you? N-O, N-O, and for the last time, N-O." One morning, a wife finds a note from her husband on the fridge. "My dear wife, I'm sure you'll understand that as much as I love and appreciate you, at 57 years old, you can no longer fulfill certain needs of mine. You are a wonderful wife, and I value you deeply. Therefore, I hope you won't take it the wrong way when I tell you that I'll be spending the evening with my 19-year-old secretary at the Comfort Inn. Please don't be upset. I'll be home before midnight. With love, your husband. That night, when the man returned home, he found a note waiting for him on the dining table. My dear husband, thank you for your honesty about my age. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that you, too, are 57. As you know, I teach mathematics at the local college. So while you're reading this, I'll be at the Hotel Fiesta with Michael, one of my students and the assistant tennis coach. He's young, energetic, and, like your secretary, 19 years old. Since you're a successful businessman with excellent math skills, I'm sure you'll appreciate that we are in the same situation, except for one small difference. 19 goes into 57 a lot more times than 57 goes into 19. So don't wait up. I won't be home until morning. With love, your wife. A little boy and a little girl went to the same school and became good friends. Every day, they sat together at lunch and discovered they both always brought chicken sandwiches. This continued through 4th and 5th grade, until one day, the boy noticed she wasn't eating chicken. Hey, how come you're not eating chicken anymore? Don't you like it? He asked. I love it, she said, but I have to stop. Why? She pointed to her lap and whispered, because I'm starting to grow little feathers down there. Surprise, he said. Let me see. She hesitated, but then lifted her skirt. He took a look and said, Whoa, you're right. Maybe you should stop eating chicken. He kept eating his chicken sandwiches until one day he brought peanut butter instead. I have to stop eating chicken too, he told her. I think I'm starting to get feathers down there as well. Curious, she asked to see. So he pulled down his pants. She took one look and gasped, Oh no, it's too late for you. You've already got the neck and the gizzards.